So hello everyone. Little word of explanation. We are in fact lesbians, and we are in fact talking. For a little while that me and my wife, the Omega Geek, have been doing a podcast most weeks, where we talk about random shit that interests us. It can be video games, it can be the history of various things.
Don't even lie.
It can be interviews.
We do talk about Doctor Who a lot.
We do talk about Doctor Who a lot, but we talk about a lot of things. Now,
geek issues and lesbian things, and
LGBT things sometimes. Christian cinema. It's a very
we interview people.
Yeah, it's a very
eclectic. Eccentric, exoteric, endothermic, something like that.
Yes, it's one of those things, and we do it for about an hour. And this episode, this is the introduction. We've done a bunch of these beforehand, so what we're going to do is give you a taster of the various things we've done. So what follows is about probably 40 minutes of clips from previous episodes. We're starting with a clip show, so we don't just leap in and
it's best of
confuse you.
It's our best. Yeah, there's actually about 40-some episodes. If you're looking for them, you can find them on my website, theomegageek.com. They're also on my blip, the Omega, blip.tv. But this is kind of like a highlight loop, so if you think that you might be into this, you can give this episode a listen. And then be like, oh, this is great. I love lesbians. If only I had known this before.
Yes, and if you don't like it, then, pat yourself in the back. You tried something new. But if you listen to this because you felt like masturbating to it, then thanks as well again.
Well, you know what? We should now that you're being unfair, we should have some fan service. So let's have the next few minutes are going to be some hot lesbian. Okay, the next 30 seconds will be some hot lesbian action. Okay. So, when we get home, what I want to do is I want to vacuum up the car, before I take you to the airport, but I do want to stop at Wegmans first and get groceries for the week, if that's okay.
Action!
Hot lesbian action.
Yeah.
Deciding what groceries to get.
Yes. So, this is Diamanda Hagan, and, who are you?
I'm the Omega Geek.
And we are the people who do this podcast. Enjoy or not, if you do enjoy, I hope to see you in the next one. The next episode will be all about MAGFest. We're currently at MAGFest, and
with some very, very special guests.
Dun, dun, dun!
I don't know why I put on my lounge voice for that.
I don't know.
Yeah. But so anyway, just give it a listen. We hope you enjoy. I'm going to try to hit some of the really cool things that we've discussed. Some bits from interviews, some bits from, you know what? We do have some regular parts of the show. We do have Giovanni's Trivia Fact, which comes to you via my lobster, Giovanni, who's a super special guy. We have One Time at the Store, as I worked at a bookstore for nearly 10 years, so I have a lot of stories about a lot of crazy and a lot of stupid. And at the mid part of the episode, we have a music break. In the past, we played the music of Manowar,
who are an Italian comedy heavy metal band. They're basically a parody of Manowar, but they've branched off into parodying various power metal bands.
We played the music of Tony Goldmark, who is a very brilliant filker and performer. Mm-hmm. We've had a lot of unsigned bands into some stuff. So if you're listening to this for the first time, if you have an unsigned band and you'd like to promote, please send us one of your tracks and some album art. We'll be glad to put that in the episode.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be comedy. It can be any genre. We just like to have new and interesting music to put in the episode and to break it up a bit, really.
And like I said, if you want to watch the visual version of this episode, you can find it at nervice.com and on my blip, as mentioned previously. You can also find the downloadable MP3 on my website, theomegageek.com. But MP3-wise, we will be found on thatguywiththeglasses.com.
Yep.
So now what?
I don't think anyone's listening.
Okay. So, was that good?
Play it.
Okay.
Today, the first part of this, we were supposed to talk about the Arkham games, and, because last week I should have received my copy of Arkham Origins, because I've already beaten Arkham Asylum and Arkham City on hard. It's one of the, I admit perfectly, I am a complete casual gamer. I do not tend to play games on medium or hard, because honestly, I cannot be fucking bothered. I want to play it and I want to win it, and then I can get back to watching stupid movies. But the Arkham games, I do like playing them, and I do like beating them several times. I usually start on easy, then go to medium, then hard, just to give myself little challenges. Although I maintain that to play Arkham games as most accurate, as most accurate as possible, you really need to play it on easy, because Batman is apparently so amazing that he can do anything. So you got to play it on easy to make it most realistic. Maybe it's not as fun, but it's more realistic.
Of course, he's Batman.
But I was playing, 2 weeks ago I was playing Saints Row 2 because it was lent to me. I really liked that, so I decided to buy Saints Row 3 as a stopgap until Arkham Origins arrived. Then of course Saints Row 3 arrived late, and so I just finished it yesterday. And so I can talk about the 2 Saints Row games that I have played, and I have a suggestion for how they should do an eventual 5th game, because I haven't played 4 yet, but I know what it's about. But for anyone who hasn't come across them before, basically, the first one was apparently, I haven't played it myself, basically a GTA San Andreas clone. Then the second one, it started getting silly. You would have like side activities where, in order to get respect, in order to do some stuff or do levels, you had to get enough respect to do them. So these side missions included wearing a flame retardant suit and then driving around blowing up cars, or aiming, or driving around in a septic truck and firing shit at everything. You know, fun little things like that.
Ooh.
Then Saints Row 3 went even more crazy, where, how shall I put it? You got the basic still crime simulator, you are part of this great big empire of you know, crap like that. But then you got stuff like one of the villainous crime lords is a luchador wrestler, and in order to defeat his storyline, what you've got to do is do a bunch of training with Hulk Hogan, who's not playing Hulk Hogan, but it is voiced by Hulk Hogan,
That's kind of weird.
Who's an angry luchador wrestler who was demasked. So he's training you, and in order for him to train you, first of all, he makes you experience the worst type of pain possible, so he forces you to throw yourself in front of cars until you've made about enough money in insurance money. And then the next one, another one is, he tries to teach you the meaning of courage, of how to have
For a second, I thought you were going to say he tries to teach you the meaning of Christmas.
Oh, nearly. But he tries to teach you how to have no fear. So, of course, he puts you in
no fear.
He puts you in a convertible and orders you to drive around. Then he puts a live tiger in the passenger seat. And
is it like?
It was like Life of Pi.
I was about to say, is he like GTA Life of Pi?
Basically.
That's awesome.
Then you got the
tigers on the freeway.
And then you got one of the recurring things in 3 is Professor Genki, where it's like this Japanese quiz game. It's a parody of a Japanese sort of activity, like Takashi's Castle type thing. But you've got a gun, you got a bunch of like silly mascots and people dressed up as anime characters trying to kill you. You got to shoot them, get enough points that you can get to the exit, trying to avoid the fire and lightning traps. And then occasionally they send out these guys who are basically like humanized Incredible Hulks after you.
Don't get eliminated.
Yeah, and you got a section where you are filming I got the DLC set, so this comes in the DLC where you're trying to make a movie where you've been cast as the main character in this movie based on your life, so you are supposed to attack this fake military set, which is actually just full of real military, and you're attacking with laser guns, and you're killing real people, and it's absolutely ludicrous. But yesterday...
Would you call it absolutely luchadoric, Chris?
Yes.
Listen, you say stuff like that to me all the time, so...
I do. Then but yesterday, nearing the end, because I finished it yesterday, it went over the edge of craziness whenever you had to try and hack into someone's, mainframe. So of course they put you in a VR simulation of what the computer is like, and you're taking on your enemies. And gameplay wise, it's just like the rest of them. You're running around shooting things, but the things you're shooting are computer programs and all, and you are represented by something else. But they had it looking more like Tron than Tron Legacy managed. And they had your avatar changed every so often. Sometimes you were a sex doll, sometimes you were a toilet, sometimes you were like this just collection of bits. Then, after defeating things there, then you were put into a choose your own adventure text game that you had to defeat in order to get into the next part of the game. Then it put you into like an Atari game involving blowing up another tank.
Was there a reboot homage in there? Because that would have been perfect.
They're honestly, given that they like to parody absolutely everything, I would not be surprised if there was, but I did not spot it.
That was the best show.
The remake.
Oh no, it's hexadecimal. I know, I heard about that. And I'm afraid they're going to cock it up, because everything that gets rebooted that I like gets cocked up. But honey, what is our geekly topic for today?
The geekly topic for today is we're going to talk about cartoons from the 80s. For cartoons, this was inspired because, last week when I was in Belfast, I picked up the complete run of Mask.
OMG.
Masked Crusaders fighting crime all the time, against Venom and stuff. And I already had Mask, the entire thing on DVD because nerd. And I bought this other one because it meant it was a new version which was for all of the series in one go rather than having it in multiple parts. So I was going to free up some space and it was quite cheap, so I'd sell my original copies and possibly make some profit. So did that, and then I decided to try and do something similar with Dungeons and Dragons. So I ordered that on DVD because I have an old copy of the DVD which was really big and stuff. And unfortunately, I received it, and the copy that I received was almost as big. Even though they have since released slimline versions, I got a big one, so I have 2 giant copies of Dungeons and Dragons now. I'm going to sell one.
Wah, wah, wah. That seemed appropriate right then. See, I have an issue because I was born in the first week of 1980, so I remember most of the 80s, and around about the time when Nickelodeon was created, they didn't have a lot of capital, so a lot of the shows that they showed were, cartoons from other countries that they got the rights real cheap and they just dubbed. So all of my fond memories turn out to be Japanese, French, Spanish. It's terrible. Because you can find some of them on DVD in their original language with no English dub or subtitles in PAL. And I'm like, I'm not PAL, I'm NTSC. But yeah, I would give probably maybe up to $100 for a copy of the English dub of the French cartoon Spartacus and the Sun Beneath the Sea. Although that was the English title. I think it's called Les Mondes Engloutis, the Encapsulated World, which basically was my first exposure to sci-fi as a little teeny kid.
I did not see that show.
It was really in depth, and it was really pretty adult sci-fi for kids. And I found a torrent of it, but it's in the original French. And I took several years of French, but not that much French. So I swear, if I could find it, even if it was PAL DVD, in English dub of that show, $100. I would totally pay just for that.
If I come across it, I will tell you.
Okay.
When it comes to French animated shows from the 80s, the one that I love was Ulysses 31.
Oh yeah, you always talk about it.
Yeah, I get the feeling it was intended to be like a 1970s insane soap, sci-fi, space opera, a bit like the original Battlestar Galactica. Mm-hmm. But at some point they decided that they were going to do it as a kids' cartoon instead because it just reminds me of like these really, really epic 70s, not brilliantly intelligent, science fiction. It's and the music is amazing. Like the theme music was done by, I think it was Haim Sabin, who adapted Power Rangers for the Western audience. But the theme is, classic, silly, really, really catchy. However, the music used in the episodes itself, I'm pretty sure, was left over from the original French, and it sounds like prog rock. It's great.
Well, see, that was the thing, is back in the 80s, there was all this sci-fi stuff. And, I remember that, the Mysterious Cities of Gold, which is Japanese, which you actually can get, I think.
Which I have.
You do?
Yes, I do. I am holding my copy right now.
the best, because, you know what, they would air back to back, so it would be a whole entire hour. And I remember I was living in the house in Devon, so I was like about 3 or 4, and that was like the power hour on Saturdays. I think it was like Saturday afternoon on Nickelodeon.
Here.
And the thing is that, like, they were so great in the 80s, like, you know, all of this high-concept fantasy and sci-fi. And so for anyone who says, you know, oh, well, you know, watching TV in the 80s made kids stupid and unimaginative, I totally have to disagree with that. Like, if you know, compare that to, you know, like all the Jim Henson stuff, the 80s are a pretty good time to watch TV as a kid. They've really, like, spurred on a generation of dreamers.
Yeah. Listen to this.
You're banging something.
That was me hitting my copy of the Mysterious Cities of Gold to mock you.
Oh. I'm probably going to edit that out.
Oh?
Because people are going to be like, oh God, there's something wrong with iTunes. Hagan was just hitting something for no reason.
Hagan was just mocking you.
Mm.
Well, you'll see it whenever, you know, you get over here.
That's true. Well, did you ever watch Belle and Sebastian?
I recognize the name. I do not recall it, though.
I think it was like The Adventures of Belle and Sebastian or something like that. But that was also a French cartoon. And it was this boy, Sebastian, and his mother was part of I think they were part of a gypsy band that was somewhere in the Basque region, kind of between France and Spain. And he had, his dad was like in a war or something, and then his mother was really sick, but then she went off to find the father or get help or something like that. So he ended up literally, you know, crossing France several times with this big, huge Great Pyrenees dog named Belle. And it was kind of like Lassie, but animated. And there was a little puppy called Poochie that went with him, too. And it
definitely sounds familiar.
I'm sure you can you know, find it, you look it up on Wikipedia or something like that. But the cool thing about it was episodic. Like, it had story arcs, it had recurring characters, and it did have, you know, a final conclusion, which obviously was a happy one. But yeah, I used to watch the shit out of that. Nickelodeon, back when you were awesome.
I've got a bunch of kids shows from the 80s in my DVD collection, and every so often I like to get more because I think it's really cool to have them. Plus I get to compare children's television from then with now, and children's television is something that, if children's television is good, it's one of the best art forms that you can have out there, because it's being designed to be accessible by everyone, and it really, really celebrates imagination, and it's fairly limitless in that way. Okay, and welcome back to Lesbian Talk. This is, if memory serves, episode 33. And we have ourselves a special guest who I'm sure is probably mentioned in the description somewhere. But if you didn't pay attention to the description, we have the man, the myth, the legend, the
voice?
The voice, SF Debris with us.
Greetings.
And we are going to discuss the magnificent haul of missing Doctor Who episodes that happened recently. So,
well, haul in the loose term.
Well, it's the biggest single selection to be grabbed since Tomb of the Cybermen back in '94, I think.
That's a good point.
Half of all of the missing episodes that have been found in the last 25 years were found last week.
Yeah, it was really, really big deal. So even if the rumor that says that there are more out there, even if that's not true, it's still a massive thing to celebrate if you're a complete nerd and anorak like we are.
See, I have the feeling that there's got to be. Like, if you think about how big the world is and how many attics there are and how many thrift shops, there's got to be somewhere. You know, someone who's in America whose father worked for PBS. And he has a few of the reels in the attic, and they've just never looked at them.
Well, PBS didn't show Doctor Who until after the destruction, I don't think.
No copies of Troughton or Hartnell came to America until after all that had happened.
Oh, that's depressing then. Never mind.
Yeah, it's very depressing. But there's only a couple of episodes which, if I remember correctly, that we have almost no chance of finding. That'd be like the Feast of Stephen and things like that. Most of them, there's a slim chance, but going on hope mostly.
Yeah.
So out of all of the ones that are missing, because if you're a Doctor Who fan out there, you know that there is a fuckload missing. Which of them, which is your personal favourite, which you would like to see in the flesh, so to speak?
Power of the Daleks, no question. It had the first Troughton one, and besides all that, it was definitely one of the greatest Dalek stories of that era.
It is definitely, it's unique among Dalek stories. It's not the usual Terry Nation rejigging the same shit that happened quite a lot in the early years. And, well, all through the thing, really.
Exactly. Someone else came in, I forget the gentleman's name at the moment, had to write those 2 stories for the last season of the Daleks, and took it in a different direction. And so it was really a very a different piece, because there was this, the Doctor being brand new plot, and then there was the Dalek plot, and then there was all of the politics in the colony plot, all of these plots and counterplots going on amongst them, so that you had all these different layers to the story there, so that even though it's a 6-part story, it really only feels like maybe 4.
And on top of that, you've got the fact that the Doctor being brand new, you've never seen a regeneration before, and the Daleks are being nice. So for a little while, you're unsure as to what the fuck's going on.
Exactly.
That's very well, it's a well-placed story.
Never trust a smiling Dalek. That should be on a t-shirt.
Well, the only other time they smiled really was victory for the Daleks, and that was just not good, worth talking about. Personally, out of all the missing ones, my favourite to get back would probably be Fury from the Deep. It's wonderful. The one of the shots that we do have, the famous one of the scream of the guy, he looks like he's screaming, but he's actually ejaculating gas. That's my favourite image from Doctor Who. The best.
That sounds
shot
like an unfortunate
history.
medical complication.
Yes, I chose an unfortunate word for that.
Okay, you can continue now.
He's possessed by evil sea stuff, and he's like spewing gas out of his mouth, and it's horrifying.
Yeah, the thing about the Fury from the Deep is that everything about it sounds ridiculous. But if you actually, quote unquote, watch it, it's really scary.
Yeah.
It's an amazing achievement when they take seaweed, foam, and spraying gas out of your mouth and turn into something horrifying like they managed to do.
Yeah, it's just really, really, really good. Like my favorite Doctor is Troughton. So no matter what story we get, I'm happy to see more Troughton. So I would not be unhappy to see Power of the Daleks. I don't think you've ever answered this before in one of your videos. Who is your favorite Doctor?
Tom Baker.
Ah, interesting. Any particular reason, or just he was your first?
Well, he was my first, definitely. But even afterwards, and I had seen all of them, and I started going back and then just watching the series years later in order, I was like, there was a reason why I liked this. I mean, just there's something about his performance that he managed to capture that alien aspect of the Doctor with his behavior. Like, for instance, the way he would pick up a glass and hold it to his ear, and he's not just doing it for eccentricity's sake, but he has a reason in mind as to why the Doctor would behave that way if you ask him about it. So it's not just weird for weirdness' sake, but he has nevertheless this alien quality to him.
Yeah, I
certainly
can
the most
see
laid
that.
back of the Doctors.
I don't know. Peter Davison was a bit more laid back, I think.
Yeah, but that might have been due to his wimp factor. He's like the second most wimpy after David Tennant.
Yeah, Omega is a unrepentant Colin Baker fan.
Because he's so great and autistic and wonderful. and a friend of mine, yes, we're talking to you, Cryptic Psych, went to New York Comic Con and got me his autograph. So he is the best person ever now in the world.
The other ones, the other stories that are missing, out of the other ones, I think my top would be Galaxy 4, simply because I adore the Dravens. Fascist, probably lesbian supermodels in go-go outfits, just, they're amazing.
It is surprising that they haven't done anything more with them over the years, especially with Russell T. Davies and Moffat coming on board, old school fans of the show, that they didn't, I think they name-checked the Dravens, but that's it.
Yeah, and the Pandorica opens. And I recently reviewed Love and Monsters, and I sort of went into a whole tangent about the Hoyks, where I explained about the continuity issue, where the Hoyks is a mindless beast in Love and Monsters, but it's part of the Alliance in the Pandorica opens, and I sort of segue into just ranting about the fact that I didn't get to see the Dravens then, even though they'd be so damn cheap to put on the screen again, and how I just wanted to see Dravens, though I think I just wanted to stop myself from watching Love and Monsters for a while.
See, I think a lot of these plots sound like a really good idea at the time. And then you write the script and you give it over to the production department and everything goes downhill from there.
Which one, Love and Monsters?
Yeah. Like, I could see how that could have worked, but I don't know.
I don't want to think about it. I have to review it in a few months, and I'm trying to put that off as long as possible.
As long as you get a Scooby-Doo joke in there, you'll be fine.
Well, I'm not saying that there's not bad things in food. I mean, because God knows there are, especially in American food. But, like, I'm really sick of that conspiracy mentality of, I'm just gonna pass this on, and I'm not gonna fact check it. I'm gonna assume it's gospel. Like, I actually, when I was an office manager for a small company, it was a small film company years and years ago, I said to my boss, I was like, well, I have to reorder supplies for the kitchen, and, I'm gonna get more Splenda, because we had 2 employees who were diabetic. They were type 1 diabetic, they'd been diabetic since they were kids. You know, they needed Splenda for their coffee. And she goes, oh, no, get Splenda. And I was like, why not? Because Splenda is chemically different from aspartame and Equal and those other sweeteners. It's actually, pretty okay for you as far as the research that I did, because I did research before I started using it. And she was like, well, I heard on the internet, being the key phrase, she goes, I heard on the internet that, it has chlorine in it, and your body converts it to pure chlorine, and you die of poison eventually. And I said, Deirdre, honey, I said, yes, it has a chlorine atom in it. This is true. I said, however, pure chlorine it's a reactive gas. It has to bond with another element to become inert. That's what table salt is. It's sodium chloride. I said, pure chlorine doesn't even really, naturally exist. You have to create it. It's not just chlorine's hanging out somewhere. And she's like, no, because in your body, when the molecule breaks down into pure chlorine. And I said, that's called element synthesis. If you're committing element synthesis inside of your body, you need to call somebody. You need to get in the Lancet or the AMA journal or something, because that's a medical miracle. So she's like, no, I'll prove it. So she does a Google search, right? And this is 2007, I think. And pulls up an entire, pages and pages and pages and pages of that bullshit, Big Pharma made up AIDS and restless leg syndrome and they're all trying, it's just the man trying to sell you drugs that will kill you and all this other stuff. And she was like, pages and pages and pages and pages of testimonials about, she goes, look at this one study. They, these people had an increased example of lupus. And I said, but what were the test variables? Was there a control? Did they separate out the groups that are more likely to suffer from lupus, that have a hereditary disposition to lupus? What were the other environmental factors? And she was like, no, see, you just believe too much in what other people tell you. And I was like, who believes
what
too
the fuck
much?
is she doing?
I don't know.
This goes back to my point from ages ago. If people don't have an actual legitimate reason to be annoyed or unhappy, they will quite often go out to look for what reason. It's the same thing with anti-vaxxers. You've got, our countries in the West have lived without such things like smallpox and other horrible things on a big, massive scale for so many generations that it's like they have to invent a conspiracy to make themselves feel better, just to make them feel bad so they can.
What a lot of it comes down to is autism, and yes, autism has been increasing, over the past 50, 60 years. Everyone agrees on that. But the thing is,
people are better at noticing it.
Exactly. Our diagnostic criteria has changed. In the 1800s, they just called you the village idiot, or normal.
Or they made you Thomas Jefferson.
No, I'm not even talking about autism now. If you were significantly special needs, way back in the day, you would just maybe be put into an asylum. You would probably have to have, if you were nonverbal, you might have died in childhood, quite honestly, because, when you have major special needs, there are a lot of medical special needs, too, that they didn't know how to treat back then. And the thing is that, yes, we're better at diagnosing We have a better diagnostic criteria, and a million bajillion variables have changed in the past 50 or 60 years. So much so that, researchers are researching this, and they're making advancements. But to blanket say, oh yeah, we'll see, it's because of vaccines, first of all, that doctor was discredited.
Yeah, Wakefield is a piece of shit.
And there have been there have been countries with socialized medicine that have done massive scale experiments where they said, okay, we will stop vaccinations on, this squadron of the population. And they saw the autism rates stay consistent. But they saw a huge jump in child mortality from preventable diseases. But there are still people like, no, see, because I gave him a vaccine for the tetanus, and then he done turned into a retard, and I'm sure it's the government's fault. No. Stop being stupid. Ugh. Sorry.
Yeah, it's people...
The anti-vax people drive me up a wall.
People with comfortable lives. The more comfortable your life, the longer. The more that you feel the need that you will invent something to feel bad about.
I don't even think it's that. I think you have this LCD, this lowest common denominator of the population that, like Carl Sagan said, they don't really understand science, and that's cool. I don't really know exactly how the microwave works. I know that it, uses special kind of rays that excite the atoms and everything, or the water and everything heats up. I know vaguely how the microwave works. I couldn't take it apart and put it back together again, but that's okay. I don't have to know. But people to whom science equals magic and modern medicine equals magic, that you can tell them anything. You can tell them, yes, well, did you know that one man took one Tylenol every day and he grew up to be Wolverine? Oh, really? Well, I better hit the share button. Like they're so, I don't even know, they're so willing to just believe anything that, yep, must be magic. I believe that.
So you take one Tylenol a day and you become fictional.
But anyway, today for our secondary topic, we're actually going to be topical and talk about things that enrich your life.
Topical, topical, topical.
Is that your little song for it?
That's the theme song.
Okay. So there have been a lot of stuff going on in the news. And not just the stuff over in Russia, because that's been going on for many months now, but this week...
hey, Russia! Fuck you.
Yeah. Vladimir Putin is going to come here and kick our asses, probably.
Yeah, I got an idea. Let's do a whole, musical where we can pretend that Vladimir Putin's gay and call it Putin on the Ritz. Be so camp, and then Putin would be, sitting there in his, Wolverine skin jacket, being all, crying one tear because he knows it's true deep down.
I imagine him kind of like the Russian billionaire there was a series of cable commercials, and in one he has a little teacup giraffe. It's all CGI, but I want a teacup giraffe. And that's how I kind of imagine Vladimir Putin. If he wanted to have, Wolverine claws, surgically inserted into himself, he could probably have it done.
He's crying one tear because he knows deep down that we're right.
That's true. But, yeah, so the Indian Supreme Court, this week and this was kind of shocking, and it really came out of nowhere, apparently, to most of India, that they have recriminalized homosexuality. Out of fucking nowhere.
That's because the people who are... Well, I will moderate my comments and just sort of say, pieces of shit.
But then on the other side, in Northern Ireland, which is, as you described it, Alabama only Irish, they have legalized same-sex adoption.
Which is really surprising. I really have to do more...
You guys should even have gay marriage.
Well, they have civil partnerships, which legally in the UK has the exact same. Okay,
yes, but only because England made you. Let's be honest here.
Yeah. The rest of the UK forced them. The way that the marriage laws in the UK run is that there is no equivalent of federal marriage laws. There's just the individual parts of the UK. But civil partnerships was a totally new thing, so that was decided to bring it down for the entire of the UK rather than let it be country by country. And when they brought in civil partnerships, I don't know if this was deliberate or not, but Northern Ireland got civil partnerships a day before the rest of the UK, and it might have been a way just to sort of rub their face in it.
That's what you get for being so religious.
But the gay adoption thing, I don't know. I don't think this was a UK forced it on Northern Ireland thing.
Well, apparently, according to the article, it was for same-sex couples, but also unmarried straight couples. So it might have been one of those things where the law was being changed for unmarried straight couples, and then somebody put in homosexuals at the last minute.
Yeah, it might be one of those things that if they had homosexuals not included, then it would be sort of Northern Ireland in the breach of the UK's equality law.
Yeah.
Which I can see. It's definitely not the sort of thing that Northern Ireland would leap headfirst into deliberately.
Yeah, because, like, no offense, like, I don't see this being Northern Ireland's plan. I mean, no offense, you guys.
No, it's you can't really say, like, no offense, because I'm not saying it isn't offensive.
No, but any of our listeners who are Northern Irish, they'd be like, I'm offended, hey. Or hi.
I'm offended, hey.
Yeah, that's
It's much more offensive, the actions of Northern Ireland in general over gay people is much more offensive. Northern Ireland is.
I know, honey, but 'tis the
on average, very bigoted.
I know, honey, but 'tis the season to be offended.
I don't care. Besides, I'm Northern Irish. I'm allowed to say what I like. Except
if you're on a bus.
Yeah. Did we tell that story?
I don't think so. You should tell it again.
Okay, so there we are, driving from Dublin to Belfast, because I just picked Omega up from the airport. We're on a bus, and we're both very tired, so I was just explaining stuff about Northern Ireland, which I'd probably explained previously, but I was trying to entertain her for the 2-hour bus ride. And I'd explained that in Northern Ireland that there is such a thing as sometimes colloquially known as rioting season.
But it sounds like there should be like Sears would be like, hey, so it's rioting season, don't forget to pick up your essentials, now at Sears. That's what it sounds like, honey.
Yeah. But I explained this, and then I said something along the lines of the Northern Irish love to riot. And I didn't mean every Northern Irish person, I just meant broadly, culturally, there is a lot of it happening in Northern Ireland. It's like saying the English love cricket. A lot of them do. Not all of them, that would be ridiculous. Or the Americans love their government spying on them. A lot of them do, not everyone does.
Touché.
But then this little old lady sort of looked over me really, really angry. It's like, I live in Northern Ireland, how dare you say such things? And I tried to...
What did she think you were from the South? Because you don't sound like you have a Southern Republic Ireland accent.
I have no idea. Maybe she thought I was American, but I explained, I'm from Northern Ireland as well. I got every right to fucking say what I like, but I could invent shit about Northern Ireland that's really offensive and claim it as truth if I felt like it.
And then, she got all snotty, and her husband moved, and then she just kept, for, the next 20 minutes, turning the pages of her magazine very angrily, with much vitriol.
Yeah, and if she'd said anything else, I was just on the brink of being tired enough to not care what she thought. So if she'd said anything else, I probably would have responded in kind. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special interview with me, Diamanda Hagan, and...
Me, the Omega. Woot.
Yep, we are interviewing award-winning British filmmaker Stuart Urban.
Hello.
Now, people who have watched my show will have come across Mr. Urban's work, whether you realize it or not, because he directed Preaching to the Perverted, one of the movies I reviewed in my 3rd season, I believe.
Yeah, what was your 3rd season?
And personally, one of my preferred films from 3rd series. Really, really enjoyed the film. So where did you get the idea for doing a BDSM romantic comedy?
Well, as I said once in an interview at Cannes, actually, it wasn't at Cannes, it was in the market, I said to a film journalist, well, it's of course an adaptation of Jane Austen's unknown novel, Perversion. And this bloke he wrote down, perversion. And I was actually going to publish it, I think. He was a very young journalist, and I had suggested that Jane Austen's undiscovered work was the inspiration, and he did swallow it. No, it wasn't. It was, in fact, the prosecution of fetish clubs and some pretty heavy BDSMers, as they call them, who had done things which were so scandalous that the government and police felt that a criminal prosecution and jail sentence was the only reaction, because these guys had sent their videos through the post, and I just thought, well, I mean, this is just nuts. These people who harm only themselves, if you can call it harm. I mean, it wasn't permanent harm, but it was quite graphic. I mean, quite intense. This is nuts that they're being prosecuted. So I went to a couple of the trials, and of course went to the fetish clubs to see what the fuss was about. And I came out kind of dazed, like a sort of cartoon figure with my eyes out on stalks, and was in a sort of daze for 2 weeks, kind of wanting to go up to people on street corners and say, do you realise that there is this incredible world, the fetish clubs, and all these things go on there, and it's just... I felt a bit like Peter, actually, in the film, the character who wanders into the world as an infiltrator. Well, doesn't wander, he targets the world. But, you know, I was only infiltrating for the purpose of having an amusing time and seeing what was actually going on there. What was all the fuss about, you know.
So did you dress up for the part, or did you just go as yourself, or did you go and drag like Ricky Tomlinson in Preaching, or?
Well, you know, you've got to respect their dress code, or you won't get in, basically. So I had to think of something that didn't look too comical, and so I went with my wife as Soviet officers, because we had got these uniforms out of the Soviet Union just after its collapse, or rather it was Russia by then. And they were fantastic outfits, which were like KGB. She was KGB and I was a tank colonel, I think, or major. Actually, when I was there with quite a well-known actor from the Bill, we were sort of outed or I mean, he had a full piece about him, because there was an entrapment piece in News of the World about Jeff Stewart, who used to play P.C. Hollis, for any of your fans of the Bill. And I was described as a known director in a Nazi uniform. And the only thing that really upset me was that I was described as being a Nazi, you know, which was really insulting and isn't really done. You don't really go around, as far I don't remember seeing people with swastikas on, but maybe they were.
Yeah, slightly different group, it really seems.
Yeah, but not to the News of the World. So anyway, it was quite funny. That's what we went in.
Yes, it must have been. That itself would make a really, really interesting film project itself, just, you know, dramatising that.
Yes, poor Jeff. I think he was sort of suspended from the Bill for a while for moral turpitude, you know. I think he'd ended up trying to spank the infiltrator from the News of the World. It was exactly like a story from Preaching to the Perverted, or indeed the later Leveson inquiry scandals. It was, you know, kind of straight out of that world, but some years before that was, you know, known what was going on.
One thing I noticed after rewatching Preaching to the Perverted, in the years since it was made, and since I'd first seen it, and then till I did the review, some elements of it had actually come to pass, such as, you know, the criminalisation of consensual violent porn in the UK.
There's a lot of ongoing issues, I think. I'm not up on exactly the current state of the law, but yes, I mean, well, certainly in Iceland, I think you'd be in trouble for watching Preaching to the Perverted, liberal Iceland, where, you know, any film or any content which mixes sex and, well, you could call it violence. I mean, you know, it's just people hurting themselves consensually. Is liable to banning or blocking and criminal prosecution. You know,
I'm not supposed to inject myself into the conversation, you know, because, you know, as an impartial interviewer, but that's ridiculous.
I just think that's fascinating, because I'm, you know, as an American, people really don't care that much. I mean, people pretend to care, like, it's terrible, won't someone think of the children? But porn is such a big industry around here, and, you know.
Yeah, I mean, so, yeah, in essence, that is coming full circle, yes, and things like that are going on. But I'm not exactly sure the latest piece of law. It's quite fluid, of course, how they'll patrol or police it in the age of, you know, IP tunnels and virtual private networks and all that.
Yeah, it does seem
difficult.
It's a little bit like King Canute and the sea.
Yeah. In this case, the waves of the internet. The freedom of the internet, which...
When I was younger, I watched a show called 40 on TV, and I recently discovered that the entire run, bar one episode, is on YouTube, and I sort of watched all the episodes again except for that one. And I was reminded of Alexandra Sellers, the very likely crazy woman who claims to have discovered the ancient human language that allows people to communicate with cats.
For reals, you guys.
Verbally. And she has written a book, A Beginner's Guide to Learning How to Speak Cat. But this includes cat legends that she was told by various cats that she had conversations with.
And you bought me this book. What'd you pay, like 1 pence?
1 pence and about £2 postage.
So, honey, what of the ancient veritable cat legends are you going to read for us today?
I am going to read the story of Brau and Ah.
Ah with 2 A's, just
yes,
saying.
And I know I pronounced Brau right because that's how she pronounced the word.
I can't do that roll thing. That's why I didn't take Spanish.
So if there are any cats listening, I apologize for most of my bad pronunciations, but I'm fairly sure that Brau is quite right.
You heard it here live. A real reading of a book by a crazy person.
Yep. Now, the story of Brau and Ah. Brau liked to play tricks from an early age. He had 8 sisters and was always playing tricks on them and his mother. One night when Brau was sleeping after a day of tricks, Ah, his sister, took his testicles from him. She placed them on her own eating dish.
Wait. Alright, never, just go ahead. I can't.
In the morning she said to Brau, I have hunted and found some very tasty delicacies. Do not eat them, for they are only for me. Brau went to Ah's eating dish and ate up what he found there. Ah saw that the dish was empty. She laughed. You think you have tricked me, she said. Brau cleaned up his sexual parts in satisfaction after his meal. When he discovered that he had no testicles, he understood how Ah had tricked him. He laughed. He said, that is an excellent trick. Now I will trick others until I have played a trick as good as that one. And as good as the one that Ah has played on me. Every kitten born with one hair from Brau's pelt Every kitten born has one hair from Brau's pelt somewhere on her body. In this way, Brau is still playing tricks, and he will do so until he has invented a better trick than the one that Ah played on him. That is why, when a cat has played a trick, she says, Brau.
So, I've got a few questions. One of them being, I've had cats, and I've gotten them fixed. And from what I gather, it's kind of a process. Like, there's anesthetics and stitches and the cone of shame involved. How did this castration occur in the night by a kitten with no scalpel? And then he's like, I found some delicacies. They're totally not your testicles. That sounds like something that you would have done to, like, Oancitzen in the course of a...
Yeah, I think I can totally see this happening in an episode. But...
And, like, how do you not... Okay, I don't have any balls, obviously, but, like... Guys, how do you not notice that? Like, wouldn't you? I think I would.
To be fair, this is a recreation of a legend, so it's not going to fit much in logic anyway.
Because you have to be...
Legends are fairly usually nonsensical.
Okay, well, even the Greek ones that I read as a little 5-year-old satisfied me enough. I was like, okay, well, that makes sense.
Remind me at some point to tell you the story of Finn McCool.
Well, no, Irish ones are cheating because you guys could be like, oh, it happened. That doesn't make sense. Yeah, because fairy magic. And then you're like, oh, what?
But she's even got, like, little bits, what's it called? Not end notes, the buttons at the bottom, footnotes about the story. And she, explaining that, to read a version of the story, okay, we have one of them saying that you've got to chapter 3, you can read a version of this story in cat.
Well, there you go.
Which, explaining how you pronounce it for the cats. So you could tell this story to your cat in cat. This book is called Spoken Cat, by the way. You can order it.
It's £1. Can people find it on regular Amazon, or do they have to go to...
I think it's an American book, so I'm fairly sure you can find it on .com.
Okay. And all the most of the blurbs in the back are in other languages, like Italian and stuff like that.
Yeah. This one that he had 8 sisters, so they have a footnote about that, that they're actually going into the godhead of the cat, legendary, by saying that Brau is not actually part of the godhead, and that, the cat gods are all female.
So does that make him, like, female by default because she took his testicles?
No, he means he's a demigod, but he's not a Tom.
So of the cat pantheon, it is matriarchal in nature?
Yes.
Bet you didn't know that.
Guys. In the Brow cleaned his sexual parts. The footnote is, the fact that Brow, and not one of his sisters who is shown in the act later given to humanity as the blessing of Robarrow, is insufficient grounds for suggesting, as dog fodder has, that it is not a ritual but only a joke played on a credulous humanity. If he cannot do better than this in his obsessive attempt to degrade what he cannot understand, perhaps he should move to an area of study that within his intellectual moral graft, if one can be found.
Who's dog fodder?
I have no idea.
Is it somebody on a forum?
I have no idea. But this might actually be, maybe she's also learned to communicate with dogs. I don't know.
Is this but does she have like a crazy person counterpart that speaks to dogs?
Maybe.
Is it like Icon has cheeseburger and Icon has hot dog?
Maybe.
You guys, you need to research this for us.
They're also, she's also explaining where the hair from Brow is in most cats, which is around the forehead or the ears. Mm. Now, here we go. The location of the brow hair.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
Look.
She spelled it that way, you guys.
And the location of the brow hair may sometimes be established through the fact that, as might be expected, it is a spot that needs frequent gentle scratching.
Which is pretty much everywhere in a cat, let's be honest.
Some cats say that when humans are stroking or scratching a cat, they are hunting the brow spot.
That sounds so dirty.
Although not one of the 9 blessings, which can only be performed by cats. Yes, there are 9 blessings that cats bestow on their owners.
Well, there you go.
This can be considered by cats to be a human activity, like the food offering.
Very literal child.
It would definitely make that new show She's Out much more interesting.
Oh yeah, that's like becoming all sorts of a controversy. And like it was done by a guy, because I read this article on the Mary Sue. It was done by a guy, but it was done to be like gender balanced, like because he has like an older sister and everything like that, and but he wasn't going out with any kind of political agenda. He said he just wanted to he thought this was a cool idea for a kids show, and he wanted to make it balanced, and there you go. And this poor Aussie, because like the American right wing has gone bug fuck nuts about it. And I think, I don't watch, kids shows, except if, they were from the 80s and I was 5 at the time, but, more power to them, I think it sounds like a cool idea, and I hope it does well.
She's Out I've seen the pilot, and it seems to be a well-written kids show, I could foresee possibly a bunch of bronies watching it, to be honest. I think it would be absolutely hilarious.
Would be the next, what would you call adult male fans of She's Out? Shabronians?
I don't know, but if they all cosplayed, that'd be awesome. Because the character doesn't actually transform into a girl.
He just dresses like it?
Yeah, the costume comes with the powers and stuff, so they're sort of stuck with it. So this is a show where you could actually, in canon, have a bunch of men sort of just dressing up in drag, and it's absolutely perfectly fine. Sort of like Sailor Bubba and things like that. You could do that on
Well, no, see, because the American right wing has been freaking the fuck out, saying that it's about transgenderism, but it's really transvestism, if that.
Well, depending on your definition, transvestism might be covered under transgender. It depends on your definition.
But you could dress as the other gender without actually feeling like the other gender. Like, yeah. You could technically argue that I'm a transvestite because, well, okay, all right, my pants came from the women's section because I have big hips, but, I do most of my shopping in the men's section at Target.
Well, if the word transvestite was about, 300 years ago, they might identify you as a transvestite.
That's true.
But culturally, today it's one of those things that's constantly shifting. Like, 300, 400 years ago, men wore high heels and more makeup than women, stuff like that. And that was considered perfectly manly.
Oh yeah, like in the Renaissance and pantyhose and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, not pantyhose really, but like stockings.
And even as far as American War of Independence and stuff.
Oh, and wigs and things.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. If, quite honestly, if I had a fancy job and the dress code was a dress or, a pantsuit for women or a skirt or something. And if it was like a super liberal place, like maybe like in New York City, they said, oh, but if you're a woman, you do have the option if you want to wear a men's suit and tie. I would rock that shit. I tell you what. I always think that I look good, dressed as a guy, but I wouldn't consider myself transgender. Like, I know there's a lot of straight men, like perfectly straight men, like, who are just, feel like they're manly men in every other aspect, that, like, in secret, they just like to wear women's clothing. So wouldn't that technically be not pure, but but solely transvestism and not transgenderism?
Well, it all depends on your definition. Some people would define transgender as anything that is gender variant. It's one of those terms, it's an umbrella term that is very nebulously defined. This is completely tangential, but today I looked when I was doing some editing, I looked at a docudrama about George Mallory, who this famous mountaineer in the 20s who died near the summit of Everest. There's debate whether he actually made it to the summit or not. But it looks like he might have died on the way down. But from that, I looked at a couple other websites and stuff about it, and I discovered there was this case that this team. Okay, there's about 200 bodies on the top of Everest. The mountaineers will die in accidents or just fall asleep because of altitude, sickness and stuff, and they will just die, and their bodies will not be moved. Their bodies are used as markers by other mountaineers.
That's horrifying.
Well, it's because it's impossible to stage a rescue at that height.
Well, helicopter.
You can't get a helicopter over Everest and get it to stay there. It's too high up.
What about that plane that took what's his face up into the atmosphere so he could jump down?
Yeah, that was not meant to sort of hover there and pick up a body. And there's also 200 of them. The Nepalese,
robot.
I discovered when I was looking into this, the Nepalese government has a strict law saying that bodies are not allowed to be left out in the open. So the second it becomes feasible to get a body via technology or because the conditions change or the body falls far enough down, out of the, as it's called, the death zone, they will either bury it at the place or they will take it and bury it.
First of all, people should stop being stupid and going up high places where they're liable to die. Second of all, can't they build a robot? I'm sure the Mythbusters could build a robot that could go up and get them.
Well, I dare say that considering how many people die going up Everest, I think that robotics might need a few more generations before it could handle it.
Christ, how many people die going up Everest?
Well, there's 200 bodies up there that have not been able to be claimed. As far back as 60, 70 years ago.
That's horrible. People need to stop doing stupid things.
That's not the single most horrifying part.
What is?
There is several cases I read about of people who found living people there and they couldn't help them, so they had to leave them to die, screaming for help.
Why couldn't they help them?
Because trying to bring someone down the mountain is impossible unless you get a full team of people. And
to call somebody.
Well, what can they do?
They'll get those little guys to go up. The Sherpas, they can run up to the side of the mountain.
The Sherpas,
they have skills because they've been doing it for generations.
Getting someone to these remote areas is pretty much impossible.
How could you? No, you have to help them. You carry them on your back.
There's some cases, the single...
Make a sled.
There was this American woman who that happened. She apparently got snowblind, and so she walked away from her husband, and she was discovered sort of lying on the ground dying by these guys who gave her some of their oxygen, and then they went off to try and get help, and she was screaming at them to help her. And when they got back, she was dead. But then...
They murder.
No, they went to get... They came back with help.
Oh, okay.
And she was already dead.
She thought that they were leaving her for good because she was probably like in a state in shock.
Yeah, and then her husband, who was apparently found, he was last seen without enough air, basically going up to try and get her, even though she was dead.
Oh God, no, he got lost.
And he died as well. But that's not the single worst case I've come across. Near the top, there is a there's a body that is called Old Green Boots. He's
there's someone's body has been there long enough that it's a landmark.
According to, from what I've read,
what is this, Oregon Trail?
The bodies are considered part of the landscape if they can't be got, and they're basically treated as part of the mountain and used as landmarks. But Old Green Boots is in a cave near the
You've reached the corpse of it's like you've reached the corpse of the English expedition from 1937. Would you like to cock your wagon and float it across, or would find an Indian guide?
That's not 100% far removed.
That's horrific.
But Green Boots is in a cave near the top, and these guys, they went up there, and there was another body there, just, this guy hunched in a corner in the cave, and 40 people passed him thinking he was a dead body, and it was actually this guy who'd gone up there, his equipment wasn't right, and he went up by himself, which, according to mountaineers, was, tantamount to suicide, and he was there for about 2 days, just hunched over, sort of out of oxygen, dying as people just walked past him. And then they
need to close this down. This has gone far enough, this foolishness.
It's crazy. Like 2000, in the year 2000, they finally found Mallory's body, and left there.
He was first, right?
He was he might have made it to the top. The mountaineers say that even if there's evidence that he made it to the top, then he's not considered the first guy, because you got to make it down alive. That's part of mountaineering.
Well, and if you do, you get a T-shirt and your photo on the wall. This is
mountaineering is insane. But the guy who went up, who was hunched over, and the 40 people went past him. If you look at there's a little documentary called.
I'm not going to watch it. That's Tale of Nightmares.
This is for the audience.
All right, audience, you watch that. I'm not watching.
I think it's called Dying for Everest. But there's this little documentary. It's on YouTube. It's about a guy called David Sharp. He was the guy who was in the cave, and there is suggestion that at least one of the teams that went past, could have helped him, but decided it was more important to reach the top.
They should be tried for murder. That is negligent murder.
There is little discussion, like the guy who was in charge of that expedition says that they radioed, at least they think they're quite sure they radioed.
They're quite sure? They're not.
Well,
they don't even forget.
The air is about 1/3 as thick as normal, so your mind plays tricks, apparently.
I don't care. That's
but the guy from Edmund Hillary, the first guy who apparently first climbed it, he went on record as saying that they were scumbags who should have helped him.
Good. He's right. And we should listen to Nanowar now, but kids out there, don't climb Everest.
Yeah,
you can do drugs, that's fine, but stay in school and don't climb Everest.
Yeah, mountaineers. If any of our listeners are avid mountaineers, please explain. I don't understand.
Yeah, if you know, write the show.
If you want to be the first person to do something, then that's a reason to do something stupid and possibly get yourself killed. Okay, that's fine. But Everest has been there for a while and it's been climbed already. Don't die.
You could go to space. We always need people to go to space.
Brian Blessed has tried to climb Everest about 6-7 times each time without oxygen. He never gets to the top, but
he's old.